Just gonna wait for a few people to jump on here. Alright, hang on 1 second. We'll get things started here shortly. Thanks to all who are joining. Definitely a day you want to be watching out for. Don't usually do these on these briefing type things, but give us 1 second. Alright. Howdy, Alan. Glad to see you here. Alright, let's get started with this update regarding the severe weather outbreak that could potentially occur across portions of Indiana and Ohio tomorrow. You might notice my camera's kind of slow. I'm still trying to figure out exactly why that is, but this is a live briefing. Latest 0Z HRRR models have come out for this setup, so we're going to examine the HRRR, and then we're also going to take a quick look at the risk area for severe weather. You notice that this is the SPC's website. Okay, so this gives us kind of a look at the current weather and also the risk area that is attached to the current weather that is going on. And you might notice that there is a severe thunderstorm watch across portions of Indiana and Ohio. I just got a text message from a friend asking if he should park his car inside tonight. Well, let's get a little bit of a look at that, shall we? So there's an enhanced risk for severe thunderstorms across portions of southwestern Ohio and southern Ohio. And the mic is soft. Here, I can turn that up a little bit. I want to make sure you guys can hear me. Let's go to 180. Is that better? Hopefully. Alright, so enhanced risk for severe thunderstorms across southern Indiana and slight risk across southern Ohio. Again, the tornado potential is lower with this one. The wind potential is at 30%, and it's a hatched region across portions of western Indiana. And then you also have a 30% risk extending into southwest Ohio. And then here's your hail threat. So in terms of hail, today is probably not going to be as much of a concern as tomorrow. I'd say if you want to park your car inside, you're definitely going to want to do it tomorrow. You may want to attempt to do it tonight, but I don't think you'll be dealing with as much hail. I really think the threat for Ohio as it moves to the east is really going to be damaging winds. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I really don't see the hail threat coming to significant fruition unless you live on the western side of Indiana and in portions of Illinois. That's the place you're going to want to watch out for that heavy potential. So again, this is the day one convective outlook. The concerning outlook that is pretty much gotten the attention of all the news media is the moderate risk for severe thunderstorms that is currently in place across portions of Ohio. Now here's the thing, with the latest 0Z models and the newer models that are starting to come in at this point, I would not be surprised to see this moderate risk get shifted a little bit further to the west across portions of eastern Indiana, and then also maybe getting trimmed off a little bit on the eastern side of Ohio. It's looking like that low pressure system that is going to foster all of this and cause all of this is shifting to the west, which means that the threat's still there, but it's still shifting a little bit to the west, and it might even have better potential to draw in some of that moisture associated with that strong jet stream that will be embedded into this event that is ongoing. So the primary threat, the reason why it's a moderate, it's a tornado-driven moderate risk, which means the tornado potential is pretty decent with this, and the potential for tornadoes greater than EF2 is also quite elevated as well. So it's definitely a day you're going to want to find some way to receive weather alerts and weather warnings. If you lived in, especially if you live in the 15% area, but also if you live in the 10% hatched area, you have the potential for significant, maybe even some long track tornadoes with this as well. And a place that definitely doesn't need it, I was literally just there last week helping out with the Lakeview damage. I'm just hoping that no tornadoes impact that area. And then wind potential, you see that 30% hatched area across portions of Ohio, eastern Indiana. That is the potential for wind gusts greater than 70 miles per hour, a 30% risk there. And then there is a hail risk for the potential of very large hail, possibly greater than 2 inches of diameter in that hatched region. So you can see currently Ohio is basically right in that sweet spot for all of that to come true fruition. Okay, so it's definitely a situation to be watching out for carefully. And again, you feel free to chime in with comments if you have questions, but we're going to take a look at the weather models now at this point. Let's go to the HRRR. Again, this is Pivotal Weather. You can actually look at this for yourself too if you go to Pivotal Weather's website, but this is composite reflectivity, so this is kind of showing what could possibly occur. Again, this is just a weather model, so you can't take it completely at face value, but it does give a rough idea of what is going to unfold and what's going to happen. Okay, so this is as of 8 p.m. this model right here, but as you can see, it's going to progress forward into Indiana by about 1 a.m. You see that there's some stronger thunderstorms. There's strong thunderstorms moving into portions of southern Indiana already. There's a severe thunderstorm watch out there right now in this region, so you're going to want to keep that in mind. But you get a sounding with these in southern Indiana. I'll break it down a little bit for you. It does show a possible hazard type for a tornado, and I do see that potential there, but at the same time, there is going to be less instability that these storms are going to be working with. You do notice that, oh, you can still barely hear me? Alright, let's extend it even more, shall we? Let's go to 250%. That's too much. Hang on. Alright, is that better? Hopefully that's better. 300%. Okay, so you do have that tornado sounding here, and then you have the decent directional shear present. Again, this QT chart that you're looking at right here, this area right here shows the direction of the direction of the wind at different levels of the atmosphere. At the surface, you have southeasterly winds, and then as it goes up higher, you have those westerly winds, those stronger westerly winds. So that is a favorable setup for tornado potential. Your storm relative velocity, the measure of spin in the atmosphere, is shown right here. Usually we watch for values greater than 250 for the potential for decent tornadoes, and that is there. Again, though, I do think this is going to organize into a line a little bit more, but at the same time, so the thing with it organizing a little bit into a line is the fact that it's probably going to be more of a linear mode with a potential mainly for more damaging winds. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm watching out for, but you do have that low cloud base possible, maybe embedded tornado within there could potentially occur. So that's for tonight's setup. Again, that enhanced risk that's moving through right now. So these storms will continue to move through. They will kind of stay on the southern portion of Indiana, southern portion of Ohio, and that's really what was to be expected with these storms anyway. But as it progresses forward, you can see that these storms will quickly move out of the area and start to dissipate. HRRR is hinting at the potential for some convection forming along a boundary here. That's going to be interesting to see if that actually does come to fruition, because that will impact how much instability gets up here as well. But regardless, there is still going to be a strong jet flowing into Indiana at about noon. You can see that there's not really too much convection there inhibiting. It's still like I'm whispering, huh? Well then, how exactly am I going to fix that? Sorry about that, you guys. I sure hope I can fix that later. Hopefully you can still hear me though. But maybe that'll be better. Okay, so again, we're talking about noon. It's progressing. You've got a strong jet flowing. In fact, let's freeze frame it here and I'll show you that jet stream at different levels of the atmosphere. So this is at the 500 millibar height. Alright, so this is a 500 millibar height. You do see that the wind speeds at the 500 millibar level, which is pretty high up in the atmosphere. You have 75 knots of southwesterly winds, and then you go down to the middle, layer. You can see that there is still 50 to 60, maybe even 70 knots in some places. Better sound. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Now you can hear me. So 50 to 60 knots of winds out of the southwest, and then you get closer to the lower levels, and you have southerlies coming in behind the warm front that is moving into the region. Okay, I'm glad you guys can hear. Good news. Glad to hear it. So you have that low level winds flowing in as well. Now let's go back to the reflectivity. There you see your support for this setup. What time Eastern? So this is showing at noon. Okay, so this is the expectation for noon Eastern time. All right, we're actually going to backtrack to that. This is the latest model run from the HRRR. New models are coming in. We'll probably do some updates in regards to that. But progressing it forward, you can see that convection quickly begins to fire up across portions of western Indiana by about 2 p.m. Okay, I'll get to Metro Detroit in just a second as those storms move through. This is the latest model run. I'm doing well, thank you, Tony, for checking in. I am definitely concerned and cautious about the setup that is on the way for tomorrow, but definitely going to be with some other chasers, and that'll make me feel a bit more confident going into this this chase tomorrow. So this is at 3 p.m. You see that convection is really starting to organize across portions of western Indiana. It kind of looks really jagged, but again, these storms will likely organize into discrete supercells capable of all severe hazards, especially once you get to the 4 o'clock level. You can see that the models quickly show that these storms organize into a discrete supercell setup. In fact, let me get you a local view of Indiana at this point. One thing I'm very concerned about is the prefrontal cells too. You can see this cell just near Cincinnati, in fact kind of going right over Cincinnati. It has a nice little tail on the back side of it. That tail indicates updraft helicity. So the strength of the updraft within that storm is greater than 75 meters square meters per second. So that's kind of the concern. That can be a very strong updraft capable of producing large hail, damaging winds, maybe even a tornado. I think southern Michigan is mostly going to be okay. I think any storms that get towards that region is going to be elevated, if any storms happen to make it that far. HRRR does depict some elevated supercells making their way through, but since they're elevated, they'll really struggle getting anything to the ground. I really think what you'll be looking at is maybe some hail, maybe some damaging winds, but again, the potential down in southern Michigan is quite low, and I'm going to say that quite a few times. It is quite low. I don't think you're going to see any severe weather north of Jackson. So let's continue with showing this right here. You can see this is for Indiana. You can see there's a nice cell over Indianapolis. You get a sounding there. You got a nice tornado sounding there. Low cloud basis, strong directional shear. Low level wind speeds are racing. Mid level and upper level are also racing. Cape values, which is a measure of instability in the atmosphere, is around 1700. And again, with high shear setups, it's usually need about 500 to foster a severe weather setup. And right there, you have about triple that. So you do have enough instability to favor severe thunderstorms. You got 3 Cape, which is that surface level Cape that you need to spawn updrafts at the surface. Storm relative helicity values indicate a level of spin in the atmosphere, and that is exceeding 300, which is capable of producing stronger tornadoes. So again, that setup is present there, indicated by this model run. Some models have been putting out soundings that have a PDS TOR label, which is indicative of a particularly dangerous situation. So again, you do want to wait to receive warnings as these storms go forward. Let's go to 5 p.m. And as you see, these storms are going to be racing off to the east. They're going to be difficult to keep up with. Okay, so they're moving at over 55 miles per hour. So again, if you hear those tornado sirens, yet you don't see anything in the sky, still take cover, because these storms will be racing off to the east at a very fast rate. This is at 5 p.m. They're crossing into the Ohio area. That sounding looked a little bit weaker, but we're going to take a closer look at Ohio at this point. So this is focused on Ohio. You can see those really strong prefrontal supercells across portions of southern Ohio. This includes Lancaster, and again, this is just a model run. It is likely going to manifest itself quite a bit differently, especially when we look at mesoanalysis. Mesoanalysis meaning that it is a measure of what is currently going on in the atmosphere the day of the actual event. The models just use a series of algorithms to kind of depict what could happen. It's not going to be exactly this. So, just south of Lancaster, you have that TOR sounding. That hodograph has a very nice curvature there, strong directional shear. Good instability still favoring that setup there. Get this cell that's moving into Dayton. Let's pick a sounding from there. It does show marginal tornado potential. It doesn't really have as good of a photograph. Doesn't have as much CAPE it's working with there either. HRRR kind of shows that the storms as they approach into Ohio might be getting a little bit weaker, which would be good news. We don't want to deal with any significant storms with this, but still good photographs, still good directional shear. CAPE value is still around 800, so still enough to foster some good potential for severe weather. You get up to Findlay, Ohio. You see those storms, marginal tornado potential still present with those. Progress it forward into Delaware, Columbus area. This is actually just east of Springfield at this point. Get a sounding, still have that tornado sounding. CAPE values are gradually decreasing though as we start to see the sun go down, and we start to see it move out of that major environment, which is why I'm going to say it. I do think the SPC is probably going to shift that moderate risk further west and further away from the eastern side of Ohio. That's just a theory I have. Not entirely sure if that's going to be the case. But 3 CAPE values still present, still enough to favor the potential for a tornado with this setup. So as they move east, you can see that they start to kind of look a little more sloppy and they begin to dissipate. They're getting out of that less favorable environment. You still have potential for tornadoes with those, but it is likely going to start to weaken as it heads towards the Appalachian region. You can kind of see that by midnight, threat's completely over. So that's kind of where we are at with regards to this potential. Now, I do want to look at Michigan real quick. Let's just go zoom out to a Midwestern view. Some of you were asking about Michigan in the comments, so we'll take a look there. You can see that there are some cells firing along the cold front here as well. These cells, though they do look intense, the difference here is that they are probably going to be north of the warm front. And when they're north of the warm front, it is likely not going to be capable of producing a tornado. Again, your cloud bases are very elevated. They are well over 1 kilometer above the surface of the ground, which means that it is going to be less capable of getting that updraft to reach the ground. And you can see that it's reflective of marginal severe potential, 0 CAPE, not enough instability, strong helicity, and you do have that potential for some elevated storms to possibly fire, but it's not looking like that there's going to be significant severe weather in southern Michigan, or any severe weather for that matter. The potential is very low. The focus here is along that cold front, moving from western Indiana into portions of Ohio. So let's talk chase plan. Based on the latest HRRR model, which is probably going to change quite a bit as well. Progressing it forward, you can see that I will probably make it down to this area by about 3 p.m. So I might target the Kokomo region, get a sounding out near the Kokomo area. Still got that Tor sounding, low cloud bases, good directional shear. So I'm going to probably start in the Kokomo region and then travel east with these storms, try to keep up with them. Definitely staying on a highway with this setup. So a lot to keep watching out for. Again, have a way to receive severe weather alerts. I will be storm chasing live on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. You can check it out there. I think Great Lakes Storm Chasing Network will also be active. There's several chasers I'll be joining out with this event. And I will leave it open for some questions within the next few minutes if you have any. Again, we are streaming to YouTube and Facebook right now. If you have questions, feel free to pop them into the stream right now. Meanwhile, I'm going to get a drink of some root beer. Any questions? Any questions, feel free to chime in. I can do locations at this point, general locations. Can't really do specifics. Just give me kind of a general location, and I can talk about it a little bit. And really, this cell across southern Indiana looks quite impressive. Yep. All right, so what you see here with this cell that's near Cincinnati, just west of Cincinnati, um, PDS tour sounding, very low cloud base, definitely enough instability to foster severe weather, and very decent speed shear present with this, and a nice photograph with that too. PDS tour is a good sounding indicative of potential force for a possible tornado. Curious about potential cloud cover. How long for the storm? Okay, we'll address those questions real quick. So, potential cloud cover. Let's get a look at the cloud cover map as of 3 p.m. I think you're probably going to be dealing with some clearing out ahead of this. I'm guessing there will probably be some cumulus, but again, with the strong jet we will have, I wouldn't be surprised to see some rapid clearing out in this area. And in the past we've seen clearing, pretty significant clearing out ahead of these events, and we saw it with that event during March 14th with the Indian Lake supercell that we were on. Alright, Kristen asks how long for the storm. So I think the main hazard time will start in Indiana around 2 p.m. based on the latest models, continuing east to eastern Ohio through about midnight. So that's kind of what I would say. Southern Michigan, you would want to watch out for storms, and I'm talking about extreme southern Michigan after, I'd say, 6 p.m. and I really would say your main threat is likely just small hail. In that case, I would say you'd be dealing with some hail. Tony's asking, if a cell were to pop up, would it have a wind and hail risk? Well, let's give kind of a overview first of all with what the SPC is showing, and you can see that extreme southern Michigan is in the threat zone, 5% wind risk, 5% hail risk, and 2% tornado risk. So all severe hazards are being shown by the SPC. I think your tornado risk is really low. Don't expect that to really come to fruition, but again, we'll have to see if the models tend to update that a little bit. But let's also look at the reflectivity, and we will go to a time where we start to see those cells make their way towards Detroit. Let's get a sounding just near Toledo area, because this cell will likely impact. Again, not really looking too good. Environment's not too great. You do have strong directional shear, but cells are very elevated by the time they reach Michigan. Michigan Storm Chasers is in the chat. Okay, I know several of the Michigan Storm Chasers will be live storm chasing. To answer Kristen's question, I will be live storm chasing. I'm thinking about starting just south of Kokomo. Gonna have to think about that a little bit more. But I also know that I think Chris, Ryan, Caleb, with GLSCN, Great Lakes Storm Chasing Network, will be chasing as well. So you can get a look there at some of the stuff that is going on as well. Again, this sounding is pulled out of Detroit. Environment not looking good for severe weather up there. Any other questions? I'll be on for maybe another minute or two. This setup looks quite interesting, I will have to say. This cell just west of Dayton. Don't know if I'm going to make it that far down to Dayton, though. Oh, it's Ryan. Okay, Ryan's looking to start in Lima and adjust from there. That's a good spot also as well. It'll probably come later in the evening, but it'll be a great place to intercept those storms. These storms are going to be racing super fast, so it's going to be difficult to see. Which airports in Ohio have radars? You know, that is a good question. I do not necessarily have that information. Hey, Tony, feel free to keep continuing to ask the questions. I mean, it helps me, also informs me a little bit more as well if you guys ask me questions, because then I kind of get to look at the models myself. So, will anyone have mobile radar units out and about? That is a good question. There might be some more professional chasers that are out there that have some of that more sophisticated equipment. I do not have that equipment, and I'm not sure if the other chasers have that equipment, but again, we tend to use radar images that we can pull raw off of different applications we have in our phones. One is Radar Scope, one is Radar Omega. You can check out those apps in the App Store. I believe they cost around $10. So I would say your prime time for storms to begin along the cold front is going to be 1 p.m. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the stream. It's around 1 p.m. those storms initiate across eastern Illinois. And I'm curious about these prefrontal supercells. Southwestern Ohio has some prefrontal supercell development according to the HRRR model. Shows marginal tornado potential. Still some directional shear present with that. And then these cells across southwestern Indiana may also start to fire around 1 p.m. Ooh, there's your PDS Tor. Again, PDS Tor showing kind of a better environment for severe weather there. There's food waggling. Or foot waggling. Oh. Chris is in the chat. He will be live storm chasing tomorrow. I may run into them. Maybe I'll just meet them up in Lima as that storm comes that way. I'm going to be burning some oil with my Subaru. Okay, let's take a look at a few different pieces that are coming into place at around 1 p.m. Surface-based Cape, again, 1800 to 2000 ahead of the cold front. Again, with high shear events, it's nice to have at least 500 for severe weather development, and we have close to 2000 to 2500. So a lot of instability out there. And it will surge northward with the jet that's pulling it up to the north as well. Cold front on the backside there. Chris is ready to hit the road. He can't sleep. You know, I'm probably going to have trouble sleeping myself. I'm going to be staying up waiting for that. For Broyles to bring out his best on the SPC outlook. I'm interested to see if the outlook's going to shift a little bit to the west, though. Again, here's the outlook for tomorrow. Moderate risk for severe thunderstorms. Probably going to jump off in about a minute or so, unless you guys have questions. Again, I was just down in Indian Lake last week. I'm just hoping that Indian Lake is not one of those places that sees a tornado, because the cleanup there, I was working with Samaritan's Purse, and they still have over 200 work orders to fill. Yep, we'll be live storm chasing on Facebook, on YouTube, also on Rumble. I'm going to try to stream on GLSCN. We'll see if that works out. I'm hoping to have another chaser with me. Jesse, happy to help. Glad you're here. Looks like Michigan's going to be staying out of this one, thankfully. I don't know if any other new models are coming in. Okay, we have the NAM 3K coming in. So again, I haven't looked at the NAM 3K. So we'll do a quick little analysis of that live as well. So again, NAM 3K shows a bit more widespread Cape values of 1500 than the HRRR. The HRRR did bring down the amount of instability that goes further to the north, but it still shows that environment just south of, wow, I'd say it just south of Lima. What do you know? So around 4 p.m., get a sounding out ahead of this. There's your Tor sounding. Let's go to the composite reflectivity. NAM 3K really showing some intense cells going along with that MCS that's moving through tonight. And then there's your NAM 3K putting out severe weather development. You know what? If the NAM is on point, I might go back to Marion like I did last time. Good directional shear, still showing a similar environment. Stronger helicity on the NAM 3K. Much stronger helicity. Storm motion vector, still rapid movement of these cells. So that's the NAM 3K, giving you kind of a rough idea of how this could unfold. And again, on the backside in northern Michigan, you're going to have that snow moving through too. It's crazy that you're going to start to see snow on the backside of this too. We're going to get a sounding. We're at Springfield right now. Tour sounding. Low cloud base, good directional shear. Still a favorable environment. Wow. Well, we'll have to see how the latest models unfold the next morning. I probably won't be able to go live the next morning to do a radar update, but I definitely will be storm chasing, probably starting around, I'd say 2 p.m. We may be able to catch that nice little cell. Yeah, that might be the first one to get on right there. I might get on I-69. I'll think about it. Anyways, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, make sure to subscribe and stay updated. Make sure to share this information, no matter where it's from. Share it to other people and get the information out there that live in Indiana. Maybe call people that you know down there. Help make sure they have a safety plan in place. Again, safety plan for tornadoes. Lowest floor, interior building, away from windows. Do not go under an overpass if you're on the road. Dangerous to be under an overpass in a tornado situation. You're better off finding a ditch. When and where is snow? Well, let's take a look. We'll go back to the HRRR for that. So again, on the northern side, you're going to have a surge of cool air from the north, and that is likely going to contribute to some snow potential. So we take a look, and you see snow accumulation is mainly targeting the Upper Peninsula. Again, the low has been shifting to the west, and you're starting to see that more intense snow development across portions of eastern Wisconsin and then up towards, wow, the Upper Peninsula. I think that's a little bit excessive. It could be getting some lake enhancement out there across the Upper Peninsula. 30 inches of snow, Upper Peninsula. I don't know if I buy that. Interesting thing to note too is on the warm side of this, moving through, you see some markings with total snowfall across eastern Indiana. That probably is likely more associated with hail. That was actually showing itself down in Illinois or Missouri earlier today too. I was like, that's pretty interesting. So that's the probability of snowfall. The weather tomorrow going to hit Fort Wayne. I think Fort Wayne should be on watch. I don't think it's going to be as bad in Fort Wayne, but again, depending on how far that warm front lifts northward, you're probably going to be dealing with some storms at least. Let's check Fort Wayne. Yeah, Fort Wayne, I'd say we will be watching. They will start to go elevated around that time, though. So if they go elevated, that would be rather interesting. But all right, I think I'm going to hop off, but hopefully this information was helpful to you. We'll be live storm chasing again, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and I really hope the stream doesn't go cut out. I hope we get some good cell signal. I'm going to try to stay on highways most of the time. So stay safe out there tomorrow, and I will see you all